Hello, I'm Siska Becker. Welcome to World Highlights. In this special weekly program, we compile for you all the latest news from all around the world that has made this week's headlines. This is World Highlights. In our first segment, the death toll of Friday's powerful 7.9 magnitude earthquake in central Myanmar rose to more than 2,700. Here's the complete information on that devastating earthquake.
The Hong Kong SARS rescue team and China search and rescue team Tuesday, assigned by the country's Ministry of Emergency Management, carried out a joint search and rescue operation at the Sky Villa condominium quake site in Mandalay. Equipment including snake-eye endoscopes, radar wave all-view cameras and drones was used in the joint mission. Using drones at the scene, the Joint Rescue Force conducted an assessment to ensure the safety of the rescue. The death toll from Friday's devastating earthquake in Myanmar has reached more than 2,700. In Myanmar, UN agencies said hospitals were overwhelmed and rescue efforts hindered by infrastructure damage in the civil war. Rebels have accused the military of conducting airstrikes even after the quake, and on Tuesday, a major rebel alliance declared a unilateral ceasefire to help relief efforts. 8 groups raised the alarms on Tuesday over a lack of food, water, and sanitation, and the region was hit by 5 more aftershocks. Julia Rees of the UN Children's Agency of UNICEF, who just returned from one of the worst affected areas near the epicenter in central Myanmar, said entire communities had been flattened and destruction and psychological trauma was immense. In the Mandalay area, 50 children and 2 teachers were killed when their preschool collapsed, the UN humanitarian agency said. Michael Dunford, representative and country director for Myanmar on WFP, said the organization urgently needs more funding from international donors as the relief efforts enter the recovery phase. Funding shortage has been a challenge for WFP's operation in Myanmar. In mid-March, it warned that more than 1 million people in the country will be cut off from WFP's life-saving food assistance starting in April due to critical funding shortfalls. It said that these cuts come just as increased conflict, displacement, and access restrictions are already sharply driving up food aid needs. Dunford said that since WFP has been forced to shrink its assistance in Myanmar, the sudden need to scale up its operation is particularly challenging. Residents of earthquake-damaged areas of Myanmar are in urgent need of safe drinking water, health care, and temporary shelter after Friday's devastating quake, according to Arnaud Debak, the head of the International Committee of the Red Cross delegation in Myanmar. The quake hit the center of Myanmar with an epicenter close to Mandalay, the country's second-largest city. Despite international rescue and relief efforts, residents are living in harsh conditions and facing multiple challenges, Debak said. The most urgent needs of the affected residents are clean water, health care, especially for the elderly, and safe shelter, according to the ICRC official, with scorching temperatures adding to the challenges.
See, when I'm like right on time, there's no applause. I should be late more often.
From Washington, D.C., U.S. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce said that a team from the U.S. Agency for International Development was traveling to Myanmar to help identify the most pressing needs in the wake of the earthquake there. U.S. disaster experts, including those based in Bangkok, Manila, and Washington, are monitoring the situation. She told the news briefing days after President Donald Trump's administration told Congress it would cut nearly all remaining jobs at USAID and shut the agency.
What they were asking for specifically?
I can tell you that we have finally received a formal request. I did not get a...
Myanmar observed a solemn day of national mourning on Tuesday to honor the victims of a devastating and massive earthquake that struck the country last Friday with significant loss of life and property. The nation fell silent at 12:51 local time, the exact time the earthquake occurred, as part of nationwide mourning activities. The State Administration Council announced a 7-day national mourning period taking effect from March 31st to April 6 in response to loss of life and property resulting from the disaster. April the 1st, or Tuesday, was designated as the official National Day of Mourning, while flags were flown at half-mast and sirens sounded to mark the solemn occasion across the country. In addition to the public observances, media outlets across Myanmar suspended their regular programming on Tuesday during the mourning activities.
We are now going to take a short break, but when we return shortly, we'll have the latest update from Gaza. Stay tuned to World Highlights. Back to World Highlights on TVRI World with me, Siska Becker. Our next segment will talk about the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. On our next segment, Israel abruptly ended a 2-month ceasefire with Hamas on March 18th by resuming bombing and ground operations in Gaza, increasing pressure on the group to free the remaining hostages in its captivity. Let's have a closer look.
The United Nations on Tuesday, April the 1st, dismissed as ridiculous an assertion by Israel that there was enough food in the Gaza Strip to last for a long period of time. Despite the closure of all 25 bakeries in the enclave supported by the World Food Programme, no aid has been delivered to the Palestinian enclave since March the 2nd. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office has said it would not allow the entry of all goods and supplies into Gaza until Hamas releases all remaining hostages. Then later in March, Israel resumed its bombardment of Gaza after a 2-month truce and sent troops back into the enclave.
If there's no cooking gas, the bakeries cannot open.
Meanwhile, Palestinians in Gaza said they were struggling to obtain bread, with some bakeries unable to meet their needs due to lack of flour, fuel, and other necessities. One bakery was seen empty after having ceased operations in Gaza City. Director of the Bakeries Association in Gaza, Abdul Nasser Al-Ajrami, said they were informed by the World Food Programme that the program will stop due to several reasons, including the closure of the border crossings and the lack of stock, whether it is flour, sugar, salt, or diesel. In a post on X, WFP said on Monday, March the 31st, it has roughly enough food in Gaza to support our operations for a maximum of 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, or UNICEF, on Monday called for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, as it announced at least 322 children have been killed, with 609 injured over the past 10 days due to Israeli airstrikes and ground operations. UNICEF said in its statement that most of the affected children were already displaced. taking shelter in makeshift tents or damaged homes amid the ongoing conflict. In addition to the call of the ceasefire, the UN agency also emphasized the urgent need for the protection of civilians, including children and humanitarian workers in Gaza. Gazans were on the move again in the south of the enclave on Monday, March the 31st, fleeing neighborhoods in and around Rafah after Israel issued new evacuation orders telling people to relocate to Al-Mawasi, an area on the shoreline.
The usual joy of Eid has been replaced by sorrow and hardship.
Meanwhile, the festive atmosphere for Eid al-Fitr is absent in Gaza, where thousands of displaced Palestinians are suffering from hunger, poverty, and other hardship amidst the war and Israel's block of aid supplies. According to the Islamic calendar, Muslims worldwide are expected to celebrate the first day of Eid al-Fitr on Sunday or Monday, depending on the sighting of the crescent moon. But in Gaza City, the usual joy of Eid al-Fitr has been replaced by sorrow and hardship, and in displacement camps, families are living in tattered tents surrounded by waste. Ibtisam Soup, a displaced Palestinian, said the surging prices caused by Israel's aid blockade have made celebrating Eid an unattainable luxury.
Causing diseases to spread and deepening deprivation.
And children in Gaza's Jabalia were offered on Monday a brief escape from war when Palestinian Hatem Abu Wadi, who owns a metal swing, set it up for them to play on Eid al-Fitr. Abu Wadi said his goal was to make children happy and help those who are in need, as he offered his services for free. Despite being surrounded by rubble, children gather to swing, jump on trampolines, and play carelessly even though the shadow of war still haunts them.
That's the end of the second segment. We'll return with the third segment about the announcement from U.S. President Donald Trump on his tariffs. That's coming right up on World's Highlights. You're still watching World Highlights on TVRI World with me, Siska Becker. And then in a segment, we'll talk about an announcement that has made the world shaken, especially the global markets. On our third segment, U.S. President Donald Trump announced tariffs on Wednesday against major U.S. trading partners that were more aggressive than anticipated, sending shockwaves through global market as investors worried that the duties would stall the global economy and hit corporate earnings and stoke inflation. Let's learn more.
U.S. President Donald Trump said his newly imposed tariffs will transform our nation and claimed the U.S. will become industrial powerhouse on Wednesday. Trump said that he would impose a 10% baseline tariff on all imports to the United States and higher duties on some of the country's biggest trading partners in a move that ratchets up a trade war that he kicked off on his return to the White House. Trump also called on foreign companies to build their products in the U.S. to avoid tariffs. Trump displayed a poster that listed reciprocal tariffs, including 34% on China and 20% on the European Union, as a response to duties put on U.S. goods.
Looking forward, and Brian, it's going to happen even faster than you said. You might.
Footage showed the chart presenting U.S. President Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs to match duties put on U.S. goods by other countries on Wednesday. Trump said the tariffs would return strategically vital manufacturing capabilities to the United States. The latest round of U.S. trade tariffs unveiled on Wednesday will sap yet more vigor from a world economy barely recovered from the post-pandemic inflation surge, weighed down by record debt and unnerved by geopolitical strife. Depending on how President Donald Trump and leaders of other nations proceed now, it may also go down as a turning point for a globalized system which until now had taken for granted the strength and reliability of America, its largest component. But in coming months, it will be the plain and simple price hiking and therefore demand dampening effects of new levies applied to thousands of goods bought and sold by consumers and businesses across the planet that will prevail.
Many people were looking to do us economic harm. Maybe.
Meanwhile, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said on Thursday, April 3rd, the decision by US President Donald Trump to impose tariffs was not the act of a friend, but ruled out placing reciprocal tariffs against the United States. Australia will not impose reciprocal tariffs, Albanese said, adding that it would increase prices for American households. Australia, a key U.S. security ally in the Indo-Pacific, runs a large trade deficit with the United States, a point repeatedly emphasized by Canberra in recent months as it seeks a reprieve from U.S. on tariffs. During his first presidential term, Trump had exempted Australia from tariffs. The U.S. goods trade with Australia totaled an estimated $51.3 billion in 2024, according to U.S. trade data, though neither country features in the other's top 10 trading partners by value. Meanwhile, Canada will fight U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs with countermeasures, Prime Minister Mark Carney said on Wednesday. Trump announced tariffs on Wednesday against major U.S. trading partners that were more aggressive than anticipated, sending shockwaves through global markets as investors worried the duties would stall the global economy, hit corporate earnings, and stoke inflation.
As of this evening, the tariffs.
European leaders took to social media to voice disappointment as President Donald Trump announced on Wednesday that he would impose a 10% baseline tariff on all imports to the U.S. and higher duties on dozens of other countries, including some of the United States' biggest trading partners, deepening a trade war that has rattled global markets and bewildered U.S. allies. Leaders from Poland, Sweden, and Ireland took to X, the platform previously known as Twitter, to respond. Michael Martin, the Irish Taoiseach, expressed his disappointment, writing on X, the decision by the U.S. tonight to impose 20% tariffs on imports from across the European Union is deeply regrettable. Martin strongly voiced his opposition to the move, adding, "I strongly believe that tariffs benefit no one." Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson said in a recorded statement, "I deeply regret the path the U.S. has embarked upon, seeking to limit trade with higher tariffs."
We'll take another short break, but we will return shortly with the festivities of Ramadan and Eid al-Fitr from around the world. Stay tuned to World Highlights. Thank you for staying with us right here on World Highlights on TVRI World. Here comes our last segment. On our last segment, we will see festive atmosphere for Eid al-Fitr around the world. Let's take a closer look at all the celebrations.
Libyans across the country celebrated Eid al-Fitr, marking the end of the fasting month of Ramadan, with prayers, events and gatherings. In the western city of Misrata, people headed to market areas in the days leading up to the holiday to buy clothes such as the Libyan famla, a traditional vest worn by men, and embroidered shirts. In Benghazi, young people took part in the 7th annual National Dress Gathering, held in a public square following Eid prayers. The event, where people showcase their traditional clothes, has become a tradition in the eastern city. It aims to preserve Libya's national identity and foster a sense of unity, showing solidarity, connections, and bonding of Libyans together, one of the organizers said. From Qatar, thousands of worshippers rushed before sunrise to the Education City Stadium on Sunday to attend the Eid al-Fitr prayers, which mark the end of the holy month of Ramadan when Muslims fast from dawn to dusk. The Education City Stadium hosted 8 matches in total during the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022, welcoming tens of thousands of fans from around the world. Ibrahim Al-Said, a Qatari resident from Egypt, wished for stability and peace in the region, especially in Gaza. Meanwhile, Muslims in Pakistan held mass prayers on Monday, March 31st, to celebrate Eid al-Fitr, one of the 2 major festivals in Islam, marking the end of the fasting month of Ramadan. Thousands across the country gathered at mosques and open spaces, including the railway ground in Karachi, where worshippers took part in mass congregational prayers. Pakistan, a predominantly Muslim country, where more than 90% of its 240 million populations practice Islam, has declared a 3-day holiday for Eid al-Fitr from Monday, March 31st to Wednesday, April 2nd. From Saudi Arabia, Muslim worshippers performed prayers at the Grand Mosque in Mecca on Sunday, March 30th, after the country declared it as the first day of Eid al-Fitr, which marks the culmination of the fasting month of Ramadan. Several Arab countries, such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, celebrated the first day of Eid al-Fitr on Sunday, while other countries, including Malaysia, Indonesia, and Syria, announced that the holiday will begin on Monday, March 31st. The variations is a result of differences in moon sightings that determined the end of Ramadan, the month of fasting and spiritual reflections that is observed by Muslims worldwide.
La ilaha illallah.
In Malaysia, the familiar sound of a cannon firing in Kampung Talang, located 250 kilometers from Kuala Lumpur, marked the beginnings of the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Fitr on Sunday, March 30th, filling the village with life and excitement as the fasting month of Ramadan comes to an end. The cannon firing traditions, known as Meriam Talang in Bahasa Malaysia, dates back to 1937. The tradition was originally used to scare wild animals away from the village during Eid celebrations. The cannons, once made from bamboo, have evolved over time, with steel versions emerging in recent decades to replace the original design. Every year, the villagers of Kampung Talang use up to 2 tons of cobalt to fire over 18 cannons in celebration. This year, The excitement is palpable among the younger generation, who have come together to ensure the traditions is upheld. Despite concerns over fireworks safety in Malaysia, the cannon firing traditions remains a significant part of Kampung Talang identity. In the United States, thousands of California Muslims gathered for Eid al-Fitr prayers in San Diego on Sunday, March 30, to mark the end of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. The prayer service, which was organized by the Council of America-Islamic Relations, was held at the San Diego Convention Center with both men and women attending. Leading the service, Imam Taha Hassan of the Islamic Center of San Diego made calls for peace, especially in Gaza. Palestinian-American worshipper Sobrain Damanuri said that although the Eid was a time to celebrate, it was important to not forget the ongoing atrocities in Gaza, and she called for release for those who have been detained in the U.S. for attending a pro-Palestinian protest. Columbia University student Khalil, a green card holder, was arrested by immigration agents earlier this month in a case that tests the government's efforts to deport pro-Palestinian activists who have not been charged with any crime. The San Diego prayer service was followed by a pro-Palestinian rally.
And that concludes our episode for this week. I'm Siska Becker. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, goodbye.